What happens when one of the most fearless interviewers in media goes head-to-head with a former royal who's grown tired of playing by anyone else's rules? You won't believe what unfolds when veteran journalist Tina Brown sits across from Meghan Markle in what was supposed to be a straightforward discussion about her latest ventures. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe the explosive confrontation that erupted live on air last night. The tension was palpable from the moment Meghan walked onto the set of Tina Brown's primetime show. Known for her razor-sharp questioning and no-nonsense approach to celebrity interviews, Brown had built her reputation on getting answers that others couldn't. But as Meghan settled into her chair, adjusting her designer blazer with the kind of calculated precision that had become her trademark, it was clear this wasn't going to be just another promotional appearance. "Meghan, thank you for joining us," Brown began, her voice carrying that distinctive blend of warmth and steel that had made her one of the most respected names in journalism. "I want to start with something that's been on a lot of people's minds. Your recent comments about feeling silenced during your time as a working royal. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that?" Meghan's smile didn't reach her eyes as she leaned forward slightly. "Well, Tina, I think it's important to understand that my experience was unique in many ways. The institution has its protocols, and sometimes those protocols don't account for individual voices or perspectives. But surely you knew what you were signing up for," Brown pressed, her tone remaining conversational, but with an edge that suggested she wasn't going to accept vague platitudes. "The royal family's media restrictions and public duties aren't exactly state secrets." The first crack in Meghan's composed facade appeared as her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I think that's a rather simplistic way of looking at it, don't you? No one can truly prepare for the reality of living under that level of scrutiny, especially when the coverage becomes deliberately hostile." Brown raised an eyebrow. "Deliberately hostile? That's quite an accusation. Are you suggesting the British press had some kind of coordinated agenda against you?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Meghan replied, her voice taking on a sharper tone. "I'm stating facts based on my lived experience. The coverage was demonstrably different, and any objective analysis would show that." The studio audience, initially buzzing with excitement at seeing the former Duchess in person, began to sense the shift in atmosphere. Brown, seasoned in reading the room, could feel the tension building, but wasn't about to back down. This was exactly the kind of moment that separated real journalism from celebrity puff pieces. "Let's talk about those facts then," Brown said, pulling out a tablet and scrolling through what appeared to be prepared notes. "You've spoken extensively about feeling unsupported by the palace during your mental health struggles. But sources close to the royal family have suggested that extensive resources were offered: private counseling, medical support, even adjustments to your public schedule. Can you address why those offers weren't sufficient?" Meghan's composure slipped another notch, her hands clasping together in her lap. "Sources close to the family," she repeated, her voice dripping with disdain. "How convenient that these anonymous sources always seem to have such detailed knowledge of private conversations. It's fascinating how the institution's version of events always manages to make its way into the press, isn't it?" "Are you saying those sources are lying?" Brown asked directly. "I'm saying that selective disclosure of information is a powerful tool," Meghan shot back, "and it's one that was used very effectively to shape public perception, while those of us who were actually living the reality were told to remain silent." Brown leaned back in her chair, studying her guest with the calculating gaze of a predator sizing up its prey. "You mentioned being told to remain silent, yet you've given numerous high-profile interviews, written books, produced documentaries, and now have your own media ventures. That hardly seems like silence to me." The comment hit its mark. Meghan's eyes flashed with genuine anger for the first time since she'd sat down. "Are you seriously going to sit there and question my right to tell my own story? After everything I've been through?" "I'm not questioning your right to anything," Brown replied smoothly. "I'm questioning the consistency of your narrative. You can't claim to have been silenced while simultaneously building an entire media empire around your voice." The audience was completely silent now, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Celebrity interviews simply didn't go like this. But Brown wasn't finished. "And let's address the elephant in the room," she continued. her voice taking on that particular tone that regular viewers knew meant she was moving in for the kill. Your recent business ventures, the lifestyle brand, the Netflix deals, the speaking engagements, they all seem to capitalize on your brief time as a working royal. How do you square that with your previous statements about wanting privacy and a normal life? Meghan's face flushed, and for a moment, she looked genuinely caught off guard. That's a gross mischaracterization of my work and my motivations. Is it? Brown pressed. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've monetized your royal connections more successfully than most people monetize their entire careers. And that's fine. This is America, after all. But let's call it what it island. The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Meghan's carefully maintained public persona was beginning to crack, and everyone could see it happening in real time. Her media training was warring with her genuine emotions, and the latter was starting to win. You know what, Tina? Meghan said, her voice now carrying a dangerous edge. I came here thinking we could have an honest conversation about important issues: mental health, media representation, social justice. But it seems like you're more interested in perpetuating the same tired narratives that I've been dealing with for years. Brown smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. Oh, but we are having an honest conversation, Meghan. Perhaps more honest than you're comfortable with. That's when something shifted fundamentally in the dynamic between them. The professional courtesy that had been maintaining a thin veneer of civility was about to shatter completely, and what happened next would leave viewers questioning everything they thought they knew about both women. You want honest? Meghan snapped, her voice cutting through the studio like a blade. Let's talk about honest. How about we discuss your own track record, Tina? Because last I checked, you've made quite a career out of tearing down successful women, haven't you? The accusation hung in the air like a live wire. Brown's eyebrows shot up, but her expression remained controlled. She'd weathered far worse storms in her decades-long career. I've made a career out of journalism, Meghan. Sometimes that means asking uncomfortable questions. Uncomfortable questions? Meghan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what we're calling character assassination these days? Because that's what this feels like. Another hit job disguised as legitimate journalism. The camera operators were having a field day, zooming in on both women's faces as the tension reached a boiling point. This was the kind of television that careers were made of, and everyone in the studio knew it. Brown leaned forward, her voice dropping to that dangerously quiet tone that seasoned media professionals recognized as a warning sign. Character assassination? That's rich coming from someone who spent the last few years systematically destroying the reputation of one of the world's oldest institutions. Destroying? Meghan's voice rose an octave. I shared my truth about an experience that nearly broke me. If that truth is inconvenient for the monarchy, maybe they should examine why their truth is so damn fragile. Your truth, Brown repeated, emphasizing each word with surgical precision. Not the truth. Your truth. There's a difference, isn't there? And that difference seems to be worth millions of dollars in book deals and streaming contracts. The studio audience was completely transfixed now. This had moved far beyond entertainment, into something raw and personal. Meghan's hands were visibly trembling with rage, her carefully applied makeup doing little to hide the flush creeping up her neck. How dare you, she hissed. How fucking dare you sit there and reduce my trauma to a business transaction? Do you have any idea what it's like to have your entire life dissected by people who've never walked a day in your shoes? The expletive caught everyone off guard, including Brown, who blinked once before regaining her composure. The FCC would have something to say about this later, but right now, nobody was thinking about broadcast standards. I know what it's like to be scrutinized, Brown replied evenly. It comes with public life. The difference is, most of us don't turn our personal grievances into multimedia empires. Multimedia empire? Meghan stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the studio floor with a harsh screech. You mean my work trying to amplify marginalized voices? My efforts to create meaningful content about social issues that actually matter? Sorry if that doesn't fit your narrow definition of what a woman in my position should be doing. Brown remained seated, but her posture had shifted into full combat mode. Sit down, Meghan. We're not finished here. Oh, but we are, Meghan shot back, remaining standing. Because this isn't journalism. This is a ambush. designed to humiliate me for your viewers' entertainment. And I'm not playing along anymore. You're running away, Brown stated flatly. Just like you ran away from your royal duties when they got too challenging. It's becoming quite a pattern with you, isn't it? The words hit Meghan like a physical blow. Her face went white, then red, then white again. When she spoke, her voice was shaking with barely controlled fury. Running away? I left a situation that was literally killing me. I chose my mental health and my family over an institution that saw me as nothing more than a prop in their medieval pageant. If you call that running away, then I'll wear that label with fucking pride. The second F-bomb sent shockwaves through the production team. The show's producer was frantically gesturing from behind the cameras. But both women were far beyond caring about corporate sensibilities now. Brown stood up slowly, matching Meghan's energy. And yet, here you are, years later, still talking about it. Still making it the centerpiece of your public identity. If you've moved on so successfully, why does it still define everything you do? Because people like you won't let it go, Meghan exploded. Every interview, every appearance, every project I work on gets filtered through this lens of my time as a royal. I can't even discuss my charitable work without someone asking about the fucking tiara I wore to my wedding. The raw emotion in her voice was undeniable now. This wasn't media training or calculated responses. This was pure, unfiltered anger and frustration boiling over on live television. Brown sensed the kill shot and took it. Maybe that's because your charitable work isn't what people find interesting about you, Meghan. Maybe it's because you've never actually accomplished anything noteworthy outside of marrying into the most famous family in the world. And maybe that's why you can't let go of your grievances, because without them, what else do you have to talk about? The studio fell into absolute silence. Even the camera operator stopped moving. It was the kind of moment that would be replayed endlessly on social media, dissected by pundits, and remembered long after both women were gone. Meghan's face cycled through several emotions before settling on cold fury. When she spoke, her voice was deadly quiet. You know what, Tina? You're right about one thing. I do have grievances. But they're not against the royal family anymore. They're against people exactly like you. Journalists who've forgotten the difference between holding people accountable and tearing them down for sport. You've turned cruelty into an art form and called it journalism. She began walking toward her purse, which was sitting on a side table. And you're also right that I'm done talking about this. But not because I'm running away, because I finally realized that engaging with people like you is beneath my dignity. Brown wasn't finished. Your dignity? That's rich. Tell me, where was your dignity when you were trashing your in-laws on international television? Where was it when you were making veiled accusations of racism against people who couldn't defend themselves? Meghan stopped dead in her tracks, her hand frozen halfway to her purse. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas, and everyone in the studio could feel the explosion that was about to come. Veiled accusations? Meghan's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried more menace than if she had screamed. Veiled? There was nothing veiled about what I said, Tina. I was crystal fucking clear about what happened to me and my family. She took a step closer to Brown, her entire body radiating fury. You want to talk about people who can't defend themselves? How about we talk about a pregnant woman who was being systematically destroyed by your precious British press? How about we discuss a newborn baby whose mixed-race heritage was apparently so threatening that palace officials felt the need to speculate about his skin color? Brown held her ground, but something flickered in her eyes, perhaps the first sign that she might have pushed too far. Those are serious allegations, Meghan. Allegations that have never been substantiated. Substantiated? Meghan laughed, a sound completely devoid of humor. By whom? The same institution that was complicit in the abuse? The same media that profited from it? You're asking the Foxes to investigate the Henhouse massacre, Tina. The veteran journalist tried to regain control of the narrative. What I'm asking for is evidence. Proof. Something more substantial than your feelings and interpretations. My feelings? Meghan's voice rose to a near shriek. You think having conversations about my unborn child's skin tone are my fucking feelings? You think being denied mental health support when I was contemplating suicide is just my interpretation of events? The raw pain in her voice was undeniable now. This wasn't calculated media strategy or victim performance. This was genuine anguish pouring out on live television. Brown, perhaps sensing she had gone too far but unable to back down without losing face, pressed on. I think you've weaponized your pain for profit. And I think you've done irreparable damage to an institution that has served the British people for centuries. Irreparable damage? Meghan threw her head back and laughed. A sound that chilled everyone in the studio. Good. I hope I have. I hope every single person watching this understands exactly what kind of institution you're defending. One that protects predators and persecutes victims. One that values silence over justice and tradition over human decency. She grabbed her purse from the side table with such force that the entire table shook. You know what the real tragedy is, Tina? You're a woman. You're a mother. And you're sitting here defending a system that would have destroyed you just as easily if you'd been in my position. Brown's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something that might have been uncertainty. That's not... No, you don't get to talk now. Meghan cut her off savagely. You've had your say. You've had your moment to play judge, jury, and executioner. Now it's my turn. She walked back toward her chair, but instead of sitting down, she placed both hands on the back of it and leaned forward, bringing herself eye level with the seated journalist. You want to know what I've accomplished outside of marrying Harry? I've survived. I've survived a level of public humiliation and institutional abuse that would have broken most people. I've rebuilt my life from scratch in a foreign country, while raising my children and protecting my family from the same forces that nearly destroyed me. Her voice was steady now, controlled in a way that was somehow more terrifying than her earlier rage. And you want to know what you've accomplished tonight, Tina? You've proven everything I've ever said about the British media establishment. You've demonstrated exactly why I had to leave. Not because I'm weak or a quitter or a fame-hungry opportunist, but because I refuse to be slowly murdered by people like you for the entertainment of people like your audience. Brown tried to interject. Meghan, I think I'm done, Meghan said simply, straightening up. I'm done with this interview. I'm done with your questions. And I'm done pretending that what you do here constitutes journalism. She slung her purse over her shoulder and looked directly into the main camera. To anyone watching this who's ever been bullied, gaslighted, or told that their truth doesn't matter, you saw what just happened here. This is what it looks like when the system tries to silence you. Don't let them. Brown made one final desperate attempt to maintain control. You can't just leave, Meghan. We have a contract. We have... Sue me, Meghan said without even turning around. Add it to the list of legal battles I'm apparently destined to fight. But I won't sit here one more second and let you profit from my pain. She began walking toward the exit, her heels clicking against the studio floor in a rhythm that sounded like gunshots in the absolute silence that had fallen over the room. But she wasn't quite finished. At the edge of the stage, she paused and turned back one final time. You know what's really sad, Tina? I actually used to respect your work. I thought you were different from the parasites and vultures who've made careers out of destroying women. But tonight, you've shown me that you're just another tabloid hack in expensive clothes, hiding behind the pretense of serious journalism while engaging in the same character assassination that drove me out of Britain. Her voice carried across the silent studio with perfect clarity. History will remember this conversation, not because of anything profound you said, but because you had the chance to be better than your worst instincts, and you chose cruelty instead. Congratulations. You've become exactly what's wrong with modern media. With that, she turned and walked off the set, her head held high despite the chaos she was leaving behind. The emergency exit door slammed shut behind her with a finality that echoed through the stunned studio. Brown remained seated, her face cycling through a dozen different expressions as she tried to process what had just happened. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of her struggle to regain composure. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she looked into the camera with an expression that was equal parts defiant and shaken. Well, she said, her voice slightly hoarse, I think that tells us everything we need to know about Meghan Markle. But even as she said it, something in her eyes suggested she wasn't entirely sure who had won this particular battle. The empty chair across from her seemed to loom larger than any presence ever had, and the silence that followed her words felt less like victory than like the aftermath of a devastating storm. The red recording light finally went dark, but the damage to both women to the show, and to everyone who witnessed it, was already done. Some confrontations leave no winners, only survivors, and this had been one of them.